This is the House of Hockey podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. Hockey is more than a game, it's a lifestyle. It's you, the diehard supportive fans, your favorite players who are on the team you cheer for, and the organization who supports them.
The companies that make your gear, bags, and beer league sweaters. The hockey moms and hockey dads, and everything else that makes this House of Hockey your home. Come on in. I'm Breezy.
And I'm Rae Rae.
And this is our house.
It's playoff time. You know that. Big stakes, bigger promotions. DraftKings Sportsbook is putting you courtside with a chance to turn $5 into $200. That's 40-1 odds on any basketball game. All you have to do is pick any team that is still in the hunt for the trophy. And if that team wins, you will receive $200 in free credits. That's right. Pick any team that is still in contention. Bet $5. And if that team wins, you cash $200 in free credits. All it takes to claim these 40-1 odds on the basketball team of your choosing is placing a $5 bet on that team and that team to win. Don't forget, DraftKings Sportsbook offers great odds and promotions on baseball, hockey, and so much more all week long. DraftKings is safe, secure, reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. If you haven't already, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and when you sign up, use promo code THPN, that's THPN for the Hockey Podcast Network, when you sign up to turn $5 into $200 in free credits. Bet on the basketball team of your choice to win their next game, and if they do, you can claim $200 in free credits. That's promo code THPN when you sign up, and for a limited time, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Wager paid out in site credits. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, make sure to call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
How's it going, everybody? You are listening to the House of Hockey podcast, and we have a superstar in the house today, although he doesn't think he's a superstar, but he is technically a superstar. Cam Connor, he's a Stanley Cup champ, and we're super excited to have him on and to have you guys listen to his interview later.
Oh, yeah. That's Breezy, by the way, if you're new and haven't heard the show before. I'm Rae Rae, and Cam is incredible. Such a nice guy. Had a legendary career in the world hockey and the NHL. Played with Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, along with a slew of other, like all the guys, and has a Stanley Cup, full of stories, so engaging. I mean, we didn't even get to touch on everything on our list because he was just so good at sharing such detail about everything we were asking about. You guys are really gonna enjoy this conversation and his point of view on things in life after hockey and during.
Yeah, and it's also really cool, too, because he did play on the Montreal Canadiens when they were playing the Toronto Maple Leafs, and basically the last time that the two teams had met, and the two teams are currently playing each other again since that time, so I guess it kind of, all works out. But it's a little scary for me because he's right. The Montreal Canadiens have not lost to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs when they were playing way back when. So hopefully the times have changed and we'll see something different. But for the sake of Cam, we're super excited having him on here and hear about his Stanley Cup run that he had.
Oh, yeah. It's a good story. He talks about his ring. They even used to get jackets back then. And then the fan attire, you got to hear about that. I'm not going to spoil it, but you're going to listen. And I think I came up with a really good idea. You can reach out to the marketing at the NHL, so you'll hear that. But speaking of the Leafs, that Tavares hit, whoa, that was insane and so hard to watch. I was like, I had to force myself to watch it because I knew we needed to talk about it. And I
Mm-hmm.
really didn't want to, like, I didn't want to watch it. You never want to see somebody, a hockey player, even if it's not on your team, get injured like that in a freak accident. So I
That
guess the latest,
honestly,
go
yeah,
ahead.
that honestly might have been the worst hockey accident that I've ever seen. Um, it was to the point where like you just didn't want to watch it, and it's one of those things. And I don't think I've even seen anyone say the comments that I was reading of take this the content down. You have to respect, the privacy of him and his family and his friends. And but I think people do want to see it because it is a very real moment of what had happened.
Yeah.
Obviously everyone's behind John right now, and they want him to get, better quick, and
Yeah.
um glad he's okay. But yeah, give everyone the update.
Yeah, this just in when we were recording, he is going to be out for 2 weeks at least. Yeah, obviously, with a knee injury in addition to a concussion. But it seems that he didn't have any, major damage. All of his tests, came back clear.
Clear,
I
yeah.
mean, the whole thing, giving the thumbs up on the ice, that's always a good sign, just meaning that he has motor function and the ability for his brain to control
Hmm.
his body. But like, whoa. And you gotta
Yeah.
love the, not companionship, camaraderie, maybe is the word with the C that I'm trying to think of, from the Canadian player who was it?
Compassion, maybe.
Yeah, who when I'm drawing on his name
It
too.
was Corey Perry.
Corey Perry, right. I always want to say Price, and that's not right. Corey
No.
Perry, Price is the goalie. But he went over, and just, gave him the like stick taps, like, hey man, you're gonna be okay. Like that was a freak accident.
Yeah. Corey Perry has quite the history of dirty plays. And I think that there's a lot of, people on one side saying it was dirty and people on the other side saying it was an accident. Um,
Oh
I
come
think
on. That
either way you can kind of agree that Corey Perry, regardless of his history, didn't want to intentionally hurt anybody the way that he had hurt him. Whether he tried to jump or didn't try to jump, it was a freak accident. Did he mean to do it? Probably not. People are always going to say a Corey Perry is a Corey Perry. I don't like the guy. He's probably one of my most hated players, but I definitely don't think that he did it on purpose. It was a freak accident.
Yeah. And he
It's
was
just
Johnny is going down, and Perry can't slow down and isn't seeing it at the time because he doesn't think he's going to be falling,
right.
the way he got checked and is going down, and you can't slow down. You can see
Yeah.
him try to move out of the way and
Hmm.
move his legs. He doesn't think
Yeah.
that that's going to hit him in the head. Like, come
I
on, the
think
guy
there's
doesn't
a
have
lot
enough
of
wherewithal to figure that all that's going to
yeah,
happen when you're
and
trying to
there's
get out of the
just
way.
exactly, and there's a lot of I would say controversy around that entire play, not only just with the hit, but with the fight afterwards with Nick Foligno and Corey Perry. A lot of people were saying that was a stupid fight, like it wasn't necessary. The guy already felt bad about it. Nick Foligno was just sticking up for the captain, which uh, any player probably would have done. And if it would have happened to the opposite team, I'm sure it would have been likewise. But Nick Foligno did fight Corey Perry afterwards for sticking up for John, and I think kind of having a stand for the team. Though that whole game ended up turning kind of into mush. I think that as much as you would want, the team to kind of fight for John, and feeling, the emotions from both sides, because everybody was feeling emotions at that time. Doesn't matter what team you're on, how big the competition is, or the rivalry. You're just stuck in a mode at that point. And that whole team or whole game, sorry, not the whole team, the whole game just turned into just, I don't even know, sloppy joes.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. The Boston series has been exciting to watch with the Capitals. Ovechkin's got over his 800 goals now. I think he's at like 801, maybe more. He's got some fire on the sidelines. Ovi is like not happy with some of the things that have been going on. Taylor Hall is still thriving with the Bruins, and the Canes, they're bringing back their Storm Surge, which is exciting, even though it's like to honor the frontline workers and the performances are more honorable as opposed to like creative fun. But I'm still glad that they're doing them.
Yeah, and Jeff Carter is doing phenomenal since the trade to the Penguins. It's tough to see as a Kings fan, but super happy for Carts. Penguins could honestly win the cup with that addition to the team. They've made some
That's
some
a
good
statement,
calls,
Breezy.
but I'm just saying they have some fire under their butts right now, and I think that they could really do some damage there.
It's exciting. Playoff hockey. It's here, baby. It's here.
I got my first catering gig this past weekend. When I was camping the weekend prior, one of my brother's best friends asked me to cater his poker tournament, and so I did. So I had to throw a menu together. I had to get my website up. My website is now published. If you're to a local area, you can email me and I can give you some quotes on some meals if you want some food.
Is it breezysbbq.com?
breezysbarbecuepit.com.
Spelled out or BBQ?
Just BBQ. So yeah, I did it. It was crazy. I was up. I had to start the food at midnight the night before because I worked all day on Friday. So I had to like delegate. I had, thankfully I had a little bit of a team that was able to help and get some stuff off. So we were able to have a successful time. And I think it went well. He said the food was a big hit. So yeah, the first one's down.
Yay!
And I actually have a meeting today after this podcast on my second one.
Amazing. Yeah. Even Ringo agrees. He's barking.
Even Ringo agrees.
That's so awesome. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
Yes, everybody in the Southern California region close to Los Angeles, schedule your Stanley Cup party meals now with breezysbarbecuepit.com.
There you go. Nice plug.
Make sure you guys are rating and reviewing us on iTunes if you haven't already. Just a friendly reminder. Just a little reminder, if you've got some downtime in the intermission of the playoff hockey you're watching, think of us and just log in really quick to your iTunes, 5-star review, drop a couple of comments in the review rating, and be on your merry way. It takes less than a commercial break to do it. You can totally do it.
Or if there's something that you see in a game, or if you have any questions for us, or anything you want us to talk about, or even if you just want to come on and chat with us for a brief little moment, we'd be happy to bring you on. So shoot us an email, houseofhockeypodcast@gmail.com.
Our podcast is proud to be on the Hockey Podcast Network, and the network is home to many other incredible podcasts, including this one.
Hello, hockey fans. My name is Nick Berlansky, host of the Tip of the Iceberg podcast here on the Hockey Podcast Network. My co-host, Nick Horwat, and I talk all things Pittsburgh Penguins, from top news to game analysis and other unconventional hockey talk. We've got you covered. New episodes every Monday. Tune in at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcast from. And let's go Pens.
This week, we have former pro and Stanley Cup champ with the Montreal Canadiens. We're going to hear all about that. Cam Connor. Cam later became the assistant coach for the AHL's New Haven Nighthawks. He played for the Habs Legend team in the Heritage Classic and was inducted into the Manitoba Hockey Hall of Fame in 2016. Now Cam hosts the podcast called A View from the Penalty Box, and you're going to hear a ton of great stories right now. You have quite the resume in hockey. You played for the Jets, the Canadiens, the Oilers, and the Rangers, plus a handful of minor league teams. Can you just take us through like a little stroll of your life for playing with all those teams?
Like a short version, because I'm sure there's like how do we cover such a career, right?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, I grew up in a place called Winnipeg, Manitoba, where the Winnipeg Jets are from. And so I don't know if you knew, but there used to be two leagues, one called the World Hockey Association and one, obviously, the National League. And when I got drafted in 1974, I was the number 5 guy chosen in the drafts. So there's only 4 ahead of me, and I was offered a lot of money by the Montreal Canadiens. I was offered even more money by the Phoenix Roadrunners. And so I knew if I went to Montreal, I'd be a household name, but I was never, I didn't care about that. If I could have the money in the bank and nobody knows who I am, I'm fine with that. So anyways, I decided to go to the other league. So I played in Phoenix for a couple of years, and the team was having financial problems. So they asked me, having one of the higher contracts, if I could, go somewhere else. I volunteered. I said, yeah. So they sent me to Houston, and I got to play with the great Gordie Howe. Even though he was born before me too, you all heard his name before. Mm-hmm. And then from Houston, I signed a 7-year no cut, no trade contract. And they folded after 2 years. And so I decided to get out of the world hockey and go to the Montreal Canadiens. In Montreal, I played on a team that had just won 3 years in a row the Stanley Cup. And when I got there, we won the 4th year in a row. And the next year, this world hockey merged with the NHL. And the Oilers, Glenn Sather, he knew me from playing against him. And he made me the first guy in the expansion draft. So I came to Edmonton. And he told me, he said, Cam, you're going to be here a long time. Buy a house. That's the kiss of death. So I bought a house. And we were on the road. We're actually in Montreal getting ready for a game. And the trade deadline is at 12 noon on a certain date. And it was 10 minutes before 12. And I was going out to practice a little bit early because it was a noon practice. So it was 10 to 12. I had a bucket of pucks and ready to go. And then the sports came on. So I told the boys, let's get to scoops, hear what happened today. And the first thing they said was Cam Connor traded to the Rangers for Don Murdoch over the radio. So Semenko and Wayne Gretzky, they said they were looking at me and my jaw just dropped. And so
goodness.
So anyways, that night I was on an airplane to New York, and the next day I'm in Madison Square Gardens with the Rangers team pitchers, and I'm smiling away. Team pitchers, I don't know one person in the pitchers with me. And then I played there for, I had a lot of injuries. I broke my hand 3 times. I cracked 2 vertebrae in my back. I partially separated each shoulder at least 6 times. Broke my ankle, cracked my kneecap, cracked my ribs. I wiggled my teeth every which way, but I didn't lose them. I had over 300 x-rays, and that's not including CAT scans or bone scans. I've had 150 stitches, mostly in the face.
Well, you can't tell, honestly. Your face looks great.
Well, I actually was telling the team physician many years ago, I said, I had 150 stitches, and he looked and he called bullshit. And so, but here's the secret. It's the truth. When you just get stitches and you get cut pretty good, you put liquid vitamin E on it while there's still stitches in there. And so the guy I talked about earlier, Mike Backman, he got in a fight one night in front of his mom and dad in Halifax, and this guy just drilled him under the eye, and it looked like a fish hook, and it cut him for 57 stitches, one punch. And this might gross you out, but we could pull his cheek out, and you could see his tongue. I know, it was gross. And so Mike, he was a pretty good looking guy, and he's looking in the mirror and he's going, man, look at my face. And so I told him, put vitamin D on it, man, it'll help you. And then his girlfriend at the time, she said, "Oh, that's not going to help, Mike. Don't do it. Don't." And he said, I'm going to try." So I ran into Mike a number of years ago, and you'd never believe that was 57 stitches under his eye. It did a great job. And when you put the vitamin E on, you're not talking about do it 2 weeks or 4 weeks. You put it on consistently for 6, 7, 8 months. Like you put it on every day. And so, yeah. So anyways, I got on the topic because I do have 150 stitches in the face, mostly in the face. So anyways, so I had a lot of injuries in playing with the, with Edmonton and the Rangers. And they ended up sending me to the farm team for the first time in my life. And I ended up in New Haven. And the next year, that was Connecticut. And next year was in Springfield, Massachusetts. And then the next year, I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And the team folded after 6 weeks. So we played every single game on the road. We just played every game on the road. We didn't have a home base. And we won the championship that year. And so we lived in a hotel room out of Denver. So I've probably lived in more cities in the States than you two have.
It certainly sounds like. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite place you've lived?
I got to say, to me, it always boils down to the people that you meet in that city. And that's how I see, I like this city versus, there's nothing going on here. So I got to say, probably in the States, in New York, obviously I lived in New York too. In New York, I had great neighbors. I loved them, but I was single in Phoenix and Houston. And I enjoyed it quite a bit, those cities, met a lot of great people. So I got to say, Phoenix and Houston were great. And we traveled to San Diego all the time. And if you've been to San Diego, how do you not like San Diego?
Agree.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I agree.
What about your favorite Canadian city?
Well, Canada and the States are a little bit different, in my opinion. Canada is more conservative. Now, not every single guy and every single woman are conservative, but for the most part, maybe if I was a little wilder in the States and I come back to Canada, they would look at me like, "What are you doing?" So, living in Canada, I would say Montreal is a great city. Montreal's, they're up with their fashions. And when I played it was called the Montreal Forum at the time. The French people used to put suits on and ties to come to the games, and the ladies got dressed up like it was an event because the Montreal Canadiens were so popular in Montreal that when it came time to go see the Canadiens, we just got so much publicity. And like I said, the fans would get dressed up like they're going out to symphony or something. I don't know.
I feel like the NHL should bring that back and do like a night across the league where fans get to wear like a black tie. How cool would that be?
Well, I gotta say, we were the classiest rink in town. Like everybody dressed up, and it looked sharp. Everybody looked sharp, and But back in those days, you could smoke in the arenas, and some of the arenas, some nights, it was a fog. Like it'd come right down to the ice, and you can't even believe. If you are sitting next to somebody in a bar, for example, and they're smoking, your clothes smell like smoke. Like my jersey would smell like smoke after. That's how much smoke was going around there.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Wow.
So
wow. Different. Okay, wait. You talked briefly about being in Montreal. Let's go right to the Cup. Give us the setup of what it was like for you at that time when you got to the team. You said they had won 3 years in a row before. Now you show up. What's the pressure like? Was it just fun? You were you had the fans dressed to the nines. So
yeah, they really were.
Very
it was
cool.
When you grow up in Canada, for the longest time they only had 6 teams in the NHL. With I think Detroit, Rangers, Boston, Toronto, and Montreal. That was it. So if you lived in Canada, you either were a Leafs fan or you're a Montreal Canadiens fan. There was no two ways about it. And in Montreal, they're mostly French people. In Toronto, they're mostly English people. So, between being the only two teams, from Canada NHL, plus one's French, one's English, there was a natural rivalry. And so I was well aware of the tradition Montreal Canadiens had. If I'm not mistaken, I was told that they've won more, championships, in hockey than any other pro sports teams in their category. So so I think we're sitting at, because when I look at my Stanley Cup ring, they said there was a diamond on it for each time they won the Stanley Cup. And I think if I remember correctly, there's like 24, 25 diamonds on there. So anyways, so I knew when you go to Montreal, they expect some good hockey, good caliber hockey. So that summer, when I decided to go from Houston to Montreal, the World Hockey said, you can't go because your contract is still with the World Hockey. And anyways, we had to go to court and fight it. And Montreal Canadiens knew us from Winnipeg, and Winnipeg was the team that had my rights now in the World Hockey. And they wanted to talk to me that summer. Montreal said, we don't want you going into Winnipeg over the summer because they can work on you and you may end up signing with them. So they said, we'll send you anywhere in the world, you and your wife, anywhere in the world for 2 months. We'll pay all the shock. We'll pay everything. Now, that's a great offer, except to go back to your question, I knew what to expect in Montreal, and I had to show up in shape. I had to. And so I dedicated myself to working out all summer. And, I remember with the Rangers, they would give us a body fat test. And there's 3 ways you could tell body fat. One is they use these calipers and they put it around your triceps or your waist. And then the other was this kind of like an ultrasound gun that shot into your muscles and then it bounced back. And somehow there's a formula to figure out your body fat. But, we used to get fined for being overweight. So we would tense our muscles when they were trying to figure out body fat, right? So it'd be relax. We said, oh, yeah, I am relaxed, but I'm tight as could be, right? So then the other way is the most accurate is it's like if you go to a grocery store and you say, well, how much does this weigh? There's usually, there needs to be scales that you could put your food or whatever you're buying on, and it kind of the top wiggled around and it finally come to a stop. Well, that's the same thing with measuring your body fat underwater. So what you have to do is you exhale, you sit on a swing, just like you see in somebody's backyard, and that's underwater, and it pulls on the scale, and you have to exhale to get all the buoyancy out of you. And so with the Rangers, we had to come in at less than 9% body fat. And so I weighed about 205 pounds, and I came in at about 8.2% body fat. And everybody came in under 9%, except for one guy. He came in at 10%. And we used to say to him, we look at him, you say, you fat F word. And we used to abuse him. And today, I'd be pretty happy if I was just 10% body fat. But so anyway, so I worked hard, came in good shape to Montreal. But they had such a powerhouse team winning it 3 years in a row. They only lost one player, and they added 4 more great hockey players. And so I didn't get to play nearly as much as I would have liked to. But I also know when you go to Montreal Canadiens, the guys that have been there a while told me, Camp, don't expect that you're going to start immediately and get a regular shift, because that's not how it works in Montreal. They keep you out of the lineup, they keep you on the bench, and they sometimes will do this for 2 to 3 years, so that when they finally give you a regular shift, you are so hungry that you just say, I'm never getting out of this lineup, and you work hard and you do what's got to be done. So I was prepared for all that. I didn't get the kind of shifts I wanted. And when we started the playoffs, we played the Toronto Maple Leafs in Montreal, and Montreal, they won their first 2 games. Montreal was a fast skating, smooth hockey team, whereas Toronto, they were a bunch of grinders that would bang and clutch and grab and fight. And so our goalie, his name was Ken Dryden, who's in the Hall of Fame. He came up to our coach, Scotty Bowman, and he said, you got to start dressing Cam and put him in the lineup. We got to go into Toronto's rink now against those guys. He can help us. And so Bowman, he did. He put me in the lineup, so I'm all excited. It's called Hockey Night in Canada. And so that's where that game is shown from coast to coast in Canada, and any hockey fans is watching it. So I remember my mom and dad were watching it, all my buddies, and I was so excited. I dressed. I didn't get a shift the first period. I didn't get a shift the second period. I didn't get a shift the third period. I didn't get a shift the first overtime. And in the fifth period, the second overtime, our team was starting to get tired because our coach only went with 3 lines all game, and Montreal and the Toronto Maple Leafs went with 4. So the longer you go with 3 lines, the guys are getting tired. So our coach looked up and down the bench, and I happened to look at him, and then he goes, "Okay, Cam, get on the ice. Don't overhandle the puck." And I was laughing. Anyways, I got out there, and I scored a goal. It wasn't, one that I could brag about. Like, it was just I went through 3 players and picked the top corner. I got it on my backhand. I broke it on a partial breakaway, and I went to fake a backhand and curl it to my forehand. And in theory, I should have an open net. And as I went from my backhand to my forehand, the goalie was trying to move with me, and he opened his legs and he took his stick off the ice, and my puck, again, I didn't try to, but it went through his legs and scored. And so
a goal is a goal is a goal.
Well, you won't believe how much abuse I took for that goal from the Toronto Maple Leaf fans. Like the goalie was for the Maple Leafs was all over me for scoring that. And then they interviewed me on Hockey Night in Canada. And, one day when you got nothing to do, you could look that interview up. And the guy's name was Dave Hodge. And he cut me up. He was a commentator in that interview 13 times in 3 minutes. And I almost want to tell the guy, would you F off?
Yeah.
Just like,
why,
what's your
though?
problem, buddy?
Like, why was it so wrong to have a 5-hole goal?
Again, you just watched that interview.
Okay.
And so what he did is they did the interview the next day. And after the first interview, and, he was pretty rude, but I don't know. I thought I had some pretty good answers. And then when the first interview was over, he said, "Oh, this didn't tape right. We got to do it again." And I remember thinking, yeah, I bet. So we did it again. And then that's the one that you'll be able to see. And, that was my first time on Hockey Night in Canada, being interviewed on the national. I was all excited. And like I said, I didn't even know to look at the camera. I was just pretty young. And so anyways, he carved me up. And somebody said, "Well, why didn't you say something back to him? You're not going to win. He's got the mic. He can cut out whatever he wants." And I could look like a fool at the end of the day. So I just shut my mouth and I went on with the interview. And I didn't see that. I never saw that interview or my goal for 25 years. I never really recalled it. And then it popped up and I found it. And then when this guy was cutting me up, I got mad. And I go, "That dirty prick." Right. So so I got my goal, and that was my 15 minutes of fame.
Nice.
And then I went to the Oilers, played with Gretzky and Mark Messier.
Wow. And
then I went to the Rangers. Like I said, I heard that on the radio, and then, so I kind of bounced around, but I enjoyed myself.
Sheesh. Wasn't there a story about, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you have food poisoning and your name wasn't going to end up on the cup?
I didn't want to make you guys hear my whole story, but you're 100% right. So, after I scored that overtime goal, it was the 3rd game of the first round of playoffs. And so the next night we played the Leafs again, and I got a regular shift, and I had so much confidence. I said to myself, I'm going to score this goal. I'm going to surprise everybody. I'm scoring this overtime goal. Just give me one chance with that puck. I'm freaking scoring. I was pumped. And as it worked out, another buddy of mine, Larry Robinson, scored the winning goal. And so the next series, we're playing the Boston Bruins. And they're a big, tough, good hockey team. And I probably played, and I don't remember for sure, probably 4 or 5 games in a row, regular shift against the Bruins. And then we went out to eat before we took our charter flight back to Montreal after the game. And the only thing I can think of is I ordered clam chowder soup and whatever else. So the next morning I go to get up and I am sick. So, when you played hockey in our day, we used to bond by going for drink a beer at the bar. And so you could never, when you play pro hockey, you can never just like you could do a 9 to 5. Oh, I'm sick today, I'm not coming in. They say, bullshit, come on in and let us look at you first. So I phoned up the team doctor and I said, here's the symptoms I got. And he just said, you know what, the flu's going around, just stay in bed, drink plenty of fluid, blah, blah, blah. If I was a name guy on the team, we had on that team 10 they're in the Hall of Fame now. It was such a strong team. If I was any one of those guys, they would have checked on me every single day and how you doing. But I was just a foot soldier doing my best. And so the team doctors, so I was laying in bed for 9 days and I went from 205 pounds down to 180 pounds. And I had, diarrhea and throwing up at the same time. I couldn't eat anything. My eyes would look like a road map. They were just redder than can be. And so finally I phoned the doctor up and I said, Doc, I don't think I've got like the flu. So he said, well, we're practicing this morning. Come on in. So I remember walking in the dressing room and the guys in the team looked at me and they have their French accent and they go, Cam, you look like a skeleton. And I was thin. And so we went to the doctor's office and they stick the scope inside you and he looked around and he said, my mistake, you have food poisoning. Now the problem was I had it for 9 days, this poison in my system. Now the medicine, whatever they gave me, I can't remember. It cured me. The radio, I said, oh man, I can feel me get better. But I missed all the playoff games. And so as the summer progressed, I ended up having chromosome problems. But the doctors, I saw 6 orthopedic surgeons all across Canada. Everybody had a different idea what was wrong with me. I couldn't work out. I had pain in my joints. And they said, oh, you got, rheumatoid arthritis. You've got one leg shorter than the other. And I told my mom, hey, was I born with one leg shorter? She goes, no. What are you talking about, right? So anyways, that was my food poisoning, and I had lots of problems because of that all summer. And when I got to Edmonton, and I'll get back to my name on the cup. When I got to Edmonton, Glenn Sather, the coach GM, looked at me. He said, "Well, what's wrong with you?" Because I was skinny, and he said, I told him, I said I had food poisoning, and I still have it, and I don't know what the problem is. So he said he had a friend of his that was a good doctor. He's 82 years old. I still remember his name was Dr. Kidd. And this was November. I was still suffering. And so I went to Dr. Kidd and he said in all the years of practice, he's only seen one other person that had what I had. And again, he got me on medicine and that helped tremendously. So back to Montreal. And I didn't find this out till 25, 30 years later. I had no idea that they were contemplating whether or not to put my name on the Stanley Cup. And what I found out was that there was an NHL rule that said, you have to play a minimum, I'm going to say, hang on.
Stand by for news.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So
we're casual here.
Yeah. So you have to put in, I want to say 30 or 40 games during the regular season, your name would be on the cup. Or if you played in the final series for the Stanley Cup, and that was against the Rangers. Well, I had food poisoning, so I missed that, and I only put 23 in, but I was on the Canadiens all year. I didn't go to the farm team. I was in every practice, every road trip, and so the guys, we all got along so well. Like even though I wasn't playing regular, I was a part of that team, and I felt it. Never a doubt in my mind. And so I see my name on the cup, but, I'm grateful. And then I find out, because I didn't qualify for that 30 or 40 games, and plus because I didn't play that last series, then your name's not entitled to go in the Stanley Cup. And there was a famous hockey player who was on that team. His name was Yvon Cornwallier. He's probably has his name on the cup 6-7 years. Outstanding hockey player. And he was with Montreal probably 15, 20 years straight. And they wouldn't put his name on it because he had back surgery the first 2 weeks of training camp. So he was out for the season. So they said, well, Cornway is not going on there and Connor's not going on there. So we had 3 players who were our player reps. And the names might not mean anything to you, but it was Ken Dryden, a guy named Doug Riseborough, and another guy named Bob Gainey. And so they said, well, these are our teammates. We want their name on. They said, sorry, they're not going on. So then those 3 guys came to my and Yvonne's rescue. And what they said was, if you don't put those 2 names on the cup, you do not have permission to put any team member's name on the Stanley Cup. Just put the 78, 79 Montreal Canadiens. So, the NHL didn't want that. So they said, well, we'll make an exception and we'll do it. So then they did. So that's how I got my name on the cup. But I didn't know this. And so I'll be forever grateful because, when you see the cup, if somebody say, well, I know a guy that's on there. I mean, I'm on there, right? So that's pretty nice.
That's pretty cool.
That's the ultimate goal in this sport is to have your name on the cup,
And
not just team of 78.
And to get that Stanley Cup ring too.
Oh yeah. Do you wear it?
I did, and I retired from the 9-to-5 life about a year ago, and I've been working my butt off in the yard and painting fences and really working hard. So I just put it away. I haven't worn it for over a year because I figure, why if I'm using my hands working. So I'll bring it out one day again. But I used to wear it. I didn't wear my wedding ring because the gold, I would get a rash underneath my ring. So my wife said, how come you got the Stanley Cup ring on the right hand and you're not wearing your wedding? So I said, okay. So I switched it over to my left hand. And so I wore it for ever and ever up until last year.
Oh, that's awesome.
But do you ever see the rings nowadays?
Oh my God, yeah. Did you see the one for the Lightning with the cup? It like turns and locks into place?
No, I didn't see that.
It does. They have like the Lord Stanley's in the middle and it turns and you can see like hidden writing underneath. They're incredible.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, we had, the Montreal Canadiens, they gave us, I would say, smaller Stanley Cup rings. They're still nice. And they said, well, we don't want to get those big gaudy ones. This looks better. And I'm saying to myself, yeah, you guys are just cheap buggers. That's the reason you didn't want bigger ones. But having said that, I've seen Chicago and other teams' Stanley Cup rings, and they are freaking massive. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, you know what? I honestly, I don't want that kind of attention. Like when I walk out, or like I'm a little billboard bragging that I played. Look at what I want, because it shows. And so I wouldn't have worn it because, I would have been proud of it, but I didn't want it to seem, I wouldn't want it to seem like I'm trying to show off every time I walk out because you can't help but see these rings. So I don't know if it's such a good thing to have it so big. Yeah. That's my own opinion. And it's just like the Montreal Canadiens jacket back in the day. They were like a really rich red. And they gave everybody these beautiful spring Montreal Canadiens jacket with a Canadian emblem on it. But you could see somebody wearing that a mile away. And so when I got it, I said, man, I'm so proud of this. But then I said, you know what? I can't wear this out in public because then everybody's thinking I'm showing off. So I said, I'll wear it when my career's over. So now my career's over. And I look at it and I say, well, I can't wear it now because now everybody thinks I'm living in the past. I'm a hot dog. So I never did wear the damn jacket. And as it worked out, I had a guy in my house doing some work, and the freaking guy stole my jacket out of the house. So I never wore it, but that guy stole it off me. So I don't have it anymore.
Oh, geez.
Oh, wow.
That's a bummer.
I've had hockey jerseys stolen out of my house. Like
Who
and you
are
try to
these
keep it.
criminals you're hiring, Cam? Come on.
Well, no, I think so. I said, listen, do you have a prison record? Like, let me talk to you. Right, so.
I see why you're doing all the work yourself now in the yard.
Yeah,
and painting fences. You're like, no more people in
Yeah.
the house. I still need to keep
Yeah.
at least my Stanley Cup ring.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I've got nothing to give you. Although they do give you miniature silver Stanley Cups.
Right.
And a couple other trophies. So I've got those hidden away when I got workers coming.
Yeah,
in.
you better. Oh my
Yeah.
God. What is it that you think? I feel like what you were saying about, not wanting a ring that's so gaudy and giant and showy. It's hard to wear something like that on a regular basis. And I think it's common across hockey players to have more of that like humble, not wanting to be so showy about all of your accomplishments and that humbleness that comes with it. Did you find that amongst the players that you played with, or is that a Cam only quality? But I think that's a hockey quality.
I don't know, be honest with you, what anybody else. I mean, the guys that got it today, are they wearing it every day? Just recently, I don't know. But I do know when I lived in Houston, there was a high school, junior high or high school, that only had like 400 kids in it, and they had a football team. And I think it was junior high. And their quarterback, their football team, were on the front page of the Houston Chronicle or Post, whatever it was called. This young 15-year-old, and he's getting all this press. And you know what? It's pretty easy to start thinking that you're pretty special. And you at that age when you get it. And this is what some Americans had told me. They said, you hockey players are so humble. And I'm trying to think why. And I said, you know what? Because nobody cares about us back home until you actually make it. Like, I did okay at 15 and 16, but I was lucky if I got my name mentioned in the paper once. So I think nobody cared about us. So we never took ourselves too serious. And, not until you make it do you get a little bit more publicity. And maybe at that point, you realize that's not that important. Like, that's my thinking. So for me, it's not, I can't speak for anybody else, but I just couldn't, I don't want to try to draw attention to what I've accomplished, which is just minor things, really.
I wouldn't say minor.
Well, in the sports world, it's good. I mean, to make it to the pros and be a hard, there's a lot of positives, but as you ladies know, it's like, the people in your life, when you have kids and you grow and you're a good role model. I mean, there's other priorities in my mind that trump, hockey accomplishments. I'm glad I did it and made it, but I just know, maybe I'm maturing now. I don't know. Maybe I've just got a little more mature. I'm not so sure.
No, I for sure hear what you're saying. It's not just about that. Your life isn't just about winning the cup and carrying that past around with you. It's a part of you and your experience and things you've accomplished, but it's not just that, because life isn't just hockey, because you can only play for so long.
Yeah. No. And again, I without naming names, but I mean, I know guys that had who they really live in the past, and they pump the chest out and they're just all talking hockey, and I just think, you know what, we had our day and move on, right? Move on. And so, this is wonderful for me to live in the past and to talk about these experiences, but that's just my thoughts anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Well, you said that you were selected first overall in the Edmonton Oilers expansion draft.
Right.
And you got to play with Gretzky. How was it playing with him versus playing, these other legends that you played with?
Well, I did. And Wayne and Messier, they both accomplished quite a bit in their careers. And they were 18 years old. And there was another guy named Kevin Lowe. And Kevin had a great career, and he's still involved. I think he's the president of the Oilers hockey or something along those lines. So I played with these three guys, and, I always kind of laughed. Had I known those three guys were going to have the kind of career that they did, I definitely would have had him over for supper a lot more. Oh man, like I never. If you looked at Gretzky at 18 years old, he was skinny, even in his 20s. But you got to get dressed in front of each other in the dressing room. I'd look across the dressing room and I see Gretz's body, and I said, "Man, he's got a body of a little girl." And if I hit him hard, I'm going to break him in two. But when you get him on that ice, he couldn't hit him. He couldn't catch him. He was slippery. He knew what he was doing out there. But it was great playing with those guys. And what I've learned from a lot of the superstars that I played with, I would say the vast majority of them, and this is why I like them, is because they're humble. They don't have to talk about their accomplishments and look what I did. And when I judge somebody, whether I like them or not, and I don't know, this is quite the way to put it, but I see so many people, especially when I got out of hockey, who they're kind of a nasty person. And then when some boss or somebody that could do something for you comes by, all of a sudden I see a whole new personality come out of these people. And, anybody could be nice to somebody that could do something for you. And I tend to try to look beyond that to see how you as a person treat people that can't do anything for you, the people that open the doors for you when you go to the hotels. Those are the kind of people who, like, there's a guy like Gordie Howe and Gretzky and Messier, and there's a guy named Guy Lafleur with Montreal Canadiens. They have accomplished so much. Like, when you're with them, they don't even talk hockey. Like, they don't even talk hockey. And I observe how they treat people. And you know what? Even if they're eating supper or they're busy and somebody wants an autograph, I never once heard anybody who was in the upper level in their hockey abilities ever say, you know what, I'm busy, come back later. Or they would always drop their fork and their knife and they'd sign, and especially if it's kids. And so they were really good role models for the rest of us, for sure. So it was great playing with those guys. And I got to say, I remember it was in Wayne Gretzky's contract that every year he got a new car. So
that's really funny. That's like a funny thing to pick.
So that was just one of many bonuses he got, right?
Right.
Because, Cam Connor, I don't have a lot of, people standing in line to get me on their team.
You didn't have any asterisks in your contract,
No,
Cam?
so I had, lucky ones, little ones, but Gretzky had just about whatever he wants. So he had that in his contract. And so he's from Toronto, which is about 2-3 day drive from Edmonton. And he phoned me up and he said, Cam, you got a house in Edmonton? I said, right. He goes, I don't want to drive back to Toronto. Could I leave my car in your driveway? And I said, yeah, sure. And so the neighbor kids, they knew that I played with the Oilers, and they used to ring my doorbell all the time. And I don't know if you know what ball hockey is, but it's just, so we'd be out. So I'd go outside and play with the kids ball hockey in the street, right? Because I know the kids would enjoy it. So I'd go play with the kids, and now they knew that was Gretzky's car in my driveway. So now the season's over. And it'd be 8:30 in the morning, and my doorbell would ring, and my wife would answer it, and she'd say, and they'd say, "Can Cam come out and play?" she said, "Well, he's still in bed. Well, can we sit in Wayne's car?" So she'd go out and roll the windows down and open the doors, and we would have 4 to 6 kids sitting in Gretzky's car for 2 to 4 hours, just because it's Wayne's car. Like, they'd just be sitting there. I should have sold them popcorn and drinks and made some money off this. So, Wayne, it was pretty interesting playing with guys like Wayne.
Wait, what kind of car was it? Do you remember?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
I was like, was it even anything special, or was it just like, a new Camaro or something,
Well, back in those days, and this would be about 1980, really the only thing they had was Corvettes, maybe some Jaguars, some Mercedes. But when you're 18 years old, you don't want an old Bubba car. You want something that goes with being an 18-year-old. So So I don't remember what it was, but it was a luxury, whatever it was at the time. So.
Oh my God, that's so
Did he
fun.
ever find out that the neighbor kids hung out in his car?
Nah, I never told him, but he probably found some little kids' toys in between the seats or something, I'm sure.
Or like crackers shoved down the
for
side,
sure.
popsicle stain.
Or little notes with their phone numbers or something, right?
I'm sure he thought it was you just playing a joke on him or something.
You know what? God. If I was smart enough, I would have.
Yeah.
I would have put some notes down there from Dolly, or put some name on there, right? So I could have had some fun with that because I do like playing tricks, so that would have been good.
All right, so give us a good prank or a trick you did during your time in the league. Was it just as common to have that happen as it is nowadays?
I don't know, again, about nowadays. I think we were a little bit more immature, when we played. And, well, for example, we had a guy in the Rangers named Ron Duguay. And Ron he did modeling. He was a good looking guy, lived in New York City. He was single. He ended up marrying a lady named Kim Alexis, who was one of the top models in the world. And they moved to San Diego eventually. And so Duguay, when you have a 10:30 practice, you don't get on the ice at 10:31. You better be on before. And the coaches like it if you're on the ice 10 or 15 minutes early, doing extra work before practice. Well, Duguay didn't care. And he lived in New York City, and it was about an hour, 15, 20 minutes to the practice rink right on the New York, Connecticut border in Rye, New York. So he would, I'm a slow dresser. It takes me 20, 25 minutes to get all my gear on and my skates done up. Well, frickin' Duguay, he would get in the dressing room at 25 after 10, and we'd say, no way he's getting on. That guy dressed like Superman, put his skates on, he'd be on the ice for 10:30. So anyways, he pushed that envelope, and one day the guys, they cut all his skate laces on the skates. So he didn't allow that extra 10 minutes or 5 minutes to do his skates up again. So he got on late, and of course, he got in a lot of shit. And the coach was happy to finally catch him coming in late. So I mean, good. we would do that kind of stuff. And another time, I was one of the highest paid junior hockey players coming out of Canada. So I went to Phoenix, and the guys in the team, they knew that I made a lot of money. So every time we went to the bar, went out to eat, they'd always say, well, Kevin, you pick up this tab, you pay for everybody. And I'd say, I don't mind doing that sometime, guys, but I'm not doing it every time we go out. And they go, oh, come on, you got so much money, you're single, come on. And so I would do my share, but I wouldn't be goofy about it because I knew who are these guys 2, 3, 4 years, right? So we went from Phoenix to San Diego, and there was a bar after the game. It's called the Bull Weevil. And so what I didn't know, there was a guy on our team that, if I see the humor coming, I don't laugh. If it comes out of left field, it catches me flat-footed, I laugh. And so one guy on our team could always get me laughing. And so what he did, he would always call me tight and never spend my money and never open my wallet. So what he did is, in between periods, he caught a moth, and he went into my suit jacket where my wallet was, and he put a moth, in the billfold area, and he put it back in my suit. So we go to the Bull Weevil, and I said, well, I'm going back to the hotel now. I'm getting tired. So I said, I'll get my bill, and I go up to pay. He said, oh, I'll come with you. So as I'm standing there and I open my wallet up, this moth looked like he got beat up, comes like a drunken moth, comes crawling up over the billfold area and is sitting on my wallet. And he goes, look, he said, yeah, I've been opening that wallet for years. You got a moth living in there. Right? So, we would do shit like that all the time. Just, fun stuff.
So funny. Oh, that's so good. I love the camaraderie. I feel like you've shared so many great stories already, like interspersed through our conversation. But do you have maybe a favorite moment of your time playing, or a story that goes along with it or something. It can be, funny, serious, emotional, whatever.
Well, I mean, I swear to God, if I would have, I could have thought about this, put some more thought into it. Because I mean, I played about 10 years, and so
There's a lot.
we had lots of fun. You know, I don't know how funny it was, but I thought it was pretty funny. So we got sent to the farm team, and there was a guy on our hockey team who I shouldn't say who he is. He probably drank more than he should have. And I was told by his roommate that he woke up in the morning, he'd have to have a shooter when he got up in the morning. So, he might have been an alcoholic. I'm not going to label anybody. Yeah. So he would have a shooter in the morning. And so it was like skating. We had like a team Christmas skate at the rink. And so I had a little guy, he's maybe, I don't know, a year old, I can't even remember how old my son was. Let's see, probably 2-3 years old. So I brought him down the rink and was skating around. And so this unknown guy he's a single guy, he dressed as Santa Claus, the beard, the whole 9 yards. And the wife had bought some of the single guys some Christmas presents, nothing much, but just something, right? So then my son came up to this guy on the ice and said, Santa, I got a present for you. So he said, oh, and he picks my son up and he's got him in his arm. And then he starts talking to him. And I'm standing there, my son says, oh, Santa, you got bad breath. And I know what that's from, right? So I started laughing. I thought it was pretty funny. So, anyways.
That's really good. I like that story. I like hearing, just the real life of things.
Yeah,
you had mentioned that it's not all about your hockey accomplishments, which are many. So tell us something in your life outside of hockey that's been memorable or something that you're really proud of and that you're doing today.
Well, it may not seem like an accomplishment, but when your career is over, okay, when you play hockey today, we didn't make that kind of money. You don't have to work. If you've had a decent career and you weren't stupid with your money, you should not have to work again if you don't want to, right?
Right.
But that wasn't the case with us. And so when your career is over, it's almost back in those days like you just finished high school and now you got to figure out what do I want to do with my life, except you did have some money in the bank to buy you some time to do what you need to do to learn another field. So when my career was over, it's just like great time. Geez, what do I want to do? What should I go into? I'd like to be an entrepreneur. And you just really don't know immediately what direction you want to go. And so I wrote down 5 things that I wanted to do because I figured if you do something that you'd like to do, then, not thinking about what pays the most. If you do something you'd like to do, the odds are you're going to do it well. And if you do something well, the money will follow. So I wrote down 5 things and I just went into New York City and I knocked on doors. And one of the things I put down was computer consulting. Because a fan that I talked to, he said, what you'd be good at? And he told me about this computer consulting. So I always kept that in the back of my head. So I found some computer consulting companies and I knocked on their door. And a lot of them, I give them my resume and they go, well, it's all freaking hockey. Like, what could you do for me? I said, I was hoping you could tell me. And so I knew that I was going to get a lot of rejection, but I knew I just needed the one company that could say to me, you know what I think you'd be good at? Yeah, come on in and we'll train you. And I found them. So they brought me in and I got into what's called being a recruiter. So you start to learn the terms and what's going on. And then I did that for a year or two. They told me, and I don't know if they're just trying to make me feel good, but they said I was the best recruiter they ever had. And then they put me in sales and I did real well. And I commuted every day to work from what's called Rye Brook, New York. It was about there and back would be about 3 hours and 20 minutes. Every day was my commute to work and back. And, you know, you get burned out every day just sitting on those freaking trains. But I needed New York City more than New York City needed me, right? So there was a price I had to pay to learn a new field, and that's what I had to do. So you do what you got to do. I didn't like it, but that's what I had to do. And you got a family, you got to start finding another path in life. And so when I moved back to Edmonton, I know some hockey players, seriously, that had 10 different jobs. Well, geez, I'm doing this, but it doesn't pay enough, or I don't like this, or I don't like the company I'm with. And they bounced around. And it took them quite a long time before they found something that they liked or could make some money at. And for me, I got right into computer consulting. I did well. And I'm proud of the fact that I didn't bounce around. I was able to land on my feet. It took some effort, but that carried me for 25 years. And then one day, I just woke up and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And the wife said, okay, what are you going to do? I said, I'm not sure. So I started talking to people, and I got into it was in the oil patch, because the province in Canada called Alberta, where I live, it's all about oil. There's lots of oil in this province. So they pay pretty good, and it's very competitive, like anything else that pays good. So I got into the camp catering business, it's called. And like last year, I did $54 million in business, $52 million the year before. I was a sales guy. So I did pretty good. And so, you know, what am I proud of? I'm proud that I was able to pick up where I left off in a whole new direction and did pretty well. Right? Mm-hmm. Didn't cause my wife any more gray hairs than I had to.
Yeah, with that like whole list of injury you rattled off at the beginning of this conversation.
You know, I dated my wife since we were 15 years old.
Wow.
And
so she was through it all.
And you know, it's not easy being married to a hockey player that's on the road all the time. And you know, I remember I'd come off the road and I've got black eyes, I've got cuts in my face, and my little boy used to just start crying, and he'd feel so bad for me looking at my face. Daddy, and he'd touch the stitches, and you know, I said, don't worry about it, son. We're okay. You know, that's just what you did, right? So it was a good life.
Very good.
Not so exciting anymore, but it's, you know.
Still exciting, I would say.
For sure.
You got all the stories and whatnot, but
got the memories.
So I think we should kick off our final 4 questions.
Okay.
All right. So we ask every guest these final 4s. Ray and I will tag team them. So who is your favorite hockey hunk?
Hunk?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
No, wait a sec. As a hockey player, we don't consider each other hunks.
Okay, a beauty.
Who's my buddy? The best friend? Is that what we're asking?
No, a beauty, like who's a good-looking guy. We ask everybody this. Men and women have to answer.
Well, I'm old school.
All right.
Well, okay, guys that were good-looking that played hockey, I would never call my buddies hunks because they would laugh at me.
Fair enough.
So that guy I told you about, Ron Duguay, who married the model, top 5 models in the world. But you know, and my other buddy, Mike Backman, they were 2 good looking guys, but you know what? I probably couldn't have hung around with them. There are some guys that, you know, they know they're good looking and they can't walk past the mirror without fixing their hair or making sure their ties it perfectly when they walk out. These guys didn't care if their hair was messy or, you know, and so those are the guys that I tend to like. So I couldn't never use the word hunk for sure.
That's fair.
It's okay.
Who is your favorite hockey lady? It could be a broadcaster, a player, your wife. She's a hockey lady. You know, anything in that category.
There's a number of them, but this is pretty funny. I don't even remember some of their names, but there is one whose name is Christine Simpson, and his brother is Craig Simpson, right? So I know Craig pretty well, and Craig has a bunch of charity golf tournaments that I'm in, and she comes in. So, again, she's not looking to put the spotlight on her. And, those are the kind of people that I'm attracted to, the ones that just don't take themselves too serious and want all the attention when they walk in the room. And she's somebody like that. So I would say her, Christine Simpson. I think that's Christine is her first name.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Breezy.
Good choice. All right. And do you have a Sidney Crosby story?
Well, we're in different eras, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't play against him. And so I would probably say I don't have anything that I can really tell you about Sidney other than, I know what you guys know when I watch him on TV and read what I read about him in paper. That's about as far as my relationship goes with Sidney.
That's fine.
Is that one of your favorite hockey players? One of you ladies?
No, so that became a recurring theme amongst so many of the guests we've had on the show. Ended up having a Sidney Crosby story or meet him or in some capacity. Yeah. And it was so common that we were like, all right, well, now we're just going to make this part of the thing because it's funny. And if people don't, it's okay.
I got you for sure.
We're fans of him. We think he's good.
I'm not doing very well in these three questions so far.
No, yeah, you are.
Okay.
They're supposed to be sort of fun and
okay.
Whatever the answer is the answer. And
yes, for sure.
The last question, this is really going to throw you for a loop then. This is not about hockey at all whatsoever, but Breezy and I have seen and had some otherworldly experiences. And so now we've decided to ask our guests if they either have a ghost story or a UFO story or...
I do.
Oh, okay. Yes. Go ahead. Tell it.
Well, when I was 20 years old, I was driving in a car with a buddy of mine from Winnipeg to Las Vegas, and you got to go through the Nevada desert at night. And he was driving his car, and I remember, he didn't have any air conditioning in that car. And was it freaking hot? You try to roll the windows down, and there's this hot air coming in, and it was pitch dark. And he was looking at like when you're in the desert, just picture a flat desktop. Like that's all it is flat. And you can see for miles and miles in any direction, any car lights, and there's nothing around us, front, back, sideways, nothing. And he says, who's that right behind us in the car? And I turned around, and there's 3 lights, kind of like, from corner to corner, like a tic-tac-toe, 3 dots on an angle right behind us. And I'm looking, I said, well, what is that right behind us? And I look at him, and he looks in the mirror and goes, I don't know. And I look back, and it was right behind our bumper. And then I look at him, I said, what the? And then we turn around, and it's gone, right? And I know that I saw some of these UFO stories, and they were talking about exactly that, these 3 dots, exactly the way I saw them, that other people have seen them. And I was telling the wife about this story, and she goes, so what happened? I said, well, it just left. He goes, yeah, they said the aliens realized that there's no intelligent life in that vehicle, so they left. I said, oh, thanks a lot. So.
Oh, hockey players? Move on. No.
Yeah.
That's not true.
That's it. True. They said, these guys are a drag. Let's just go find somebody more exciting.
No, that's
funny.
Wild.
That's crazy. Yeah.
We just find it to be interesting to hear what people say about this. You also are very busy with your own podcast, right?
It's called View from the Penalty Box. And, my accountant has been so good to me over the years. Like he really has. He's been above and beyond. And so he always invites me out every Friday. Let's go for a drink. And so he has all his friends that he's from Edmonton that he grew up with, and they're all still friends. So we go have a beer or 2, 3, 4, whatever. And we sit down and talk. and somebody would say something, and I just automatically go, I got a story about that. And they said, well, let's hear it. So I tell my stories. And I've done this for a number of years. And they just, I don't know why I seem to remember all these stories. And so they'd always, say to me, well, you got to write a book. This is unbelievable. And so my son had heard me tell a few stories. And one day he said, we should do a podcast. And I said, why? He said, well, so you can share your stories. I said, I don't care if I share my stories. Like, why? He goes, well, you should. You got, anyways. So we've done 50 episodes so far. And we haven't done much over the last 8-10 months just because of COVID and so on. But, we don't make any money. I don't have any sponsors. It costs us money. And so the reason that I do it is because, in all honesty, because with my son, he's starting to find things out about me that he never knew. When he comes up with topics and that, and I start talking, he'd say to me after, I didn't know that. You never tell me that. And so it's a way to bring the two of us closer. And that's the only reason that I do it. I mean, again, as I said, you know what, I'd rather have the money and nobody know who I am. And, I don't really care if I do my podcast, but they seem to people like them. And so, you know what, I mean, they send in and ask, could you talk about this and what about that? And I thrive on the questions, because when you're trying to always figure out what you want to talk about, and you only have so many stories. You can't, it's like, there's more and more that I keep thinking of that I forgot about. But so that's why I do my podcast. And again, I would love anybody that cares to look again, this View from the Penalty Box. And we just have some fun. It's not, every week I got one coming out, but we try to do it fairly regular. And once I do it, I'm glad I did it, and I do have fun. So thank you for bringing that up.
We had fun talking to you. So thank you for sharing. You're hilarious. I feel like we didn't even touch on like half of your career, but there's time and place, and I think
Now we can do it again anytime.
Thanks. Do you do social media? Do you I know you said you want to be the guy not wearing the bright red Canadiens jacket, but
well, my son, he handles all that stuff for me. And probably lately, because I did score that double overtime game against Toronto. So the Toronto and the Montreal Canadiens are playing right now in a series. And the last time that the two teams met in playoffs was back in the day when I scored the goal. And they haven't beat Montreal, hasn't lost to the Leafs since 1967 in playoffs. And so I have got a lot of phone calls from the Montreal radio stations, the newspapers, Toronto newspapers, radio, Ottawa, which is pretty close to Toronto, plus a bunch of other people. So because these two teams are meeting in the playoffs, and, I did what I did way back when, I'm getting a little bit more publicity than I have through the newspapers. I probably get on radio talk shows 2, 3, 4 times a year, but now it's quite a bit. Nice. So I'll enjoy it while it lasts.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us.
Well, I'm glad you reached out, and you two ladies are pretty good people.
Thanks for coming over to our House of Hockey podcast and hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And in the meantime, you can follow us on social media. Just look for House of Hockey podcast. We'll be back next week.